Welcome to the Restos of the Coast Road. I'm J.C. Hubble. Today we're here at the Menard County Courthouse. I'm standing next to this marker which commemorates Lincoln's legal career. From 1847 to 1857, Lincoln rode the 8th Judicial Circuit. Menard County is still to this day in the 8th Judicial Circuit. Behind me, this courthouse, though, Lincoln never practiced in. The original courthouse, built in 1839, was destroyed by a fire. The current building has been sitting here since 1896. It's got Lincoln history. It's got a nice character. Some people say it's haunted. That's a tale for another time. But if you go here on the second floor, there are some Lincoln documents that the county has in this possession. It's an interesting thing to check out someday. But today what we're going to be making is Menard County meatloaf. When I first started this adventure down the road, I got several old recipe books. And one of the recipes I found, there was a meatloaf recipe from the Menard County Home Bureau. It came from, I believe, either in the 60s or maybe the early 1970s. And meatloaf is one of those dishes where either you love it or you hate it. There is no in between with a lot of people. But this meatloaf recipe was a little different because it uses the unique ingredient of ground bologna. So I've never tried this. We're going to make this dish today, and you're going to see my reaction live on camera. So Menard County meatloaf calls for a pound and a half of ground beef and half a pound of ground bologna. I like deli bologna. I always have. We used to, as kids, come here to what was the Freer grocery store. It was operated by Kenny and Velma Freer for about 26 years here in Athens. And we would always come here and we would get deli sliced bologna. It was good. It was a treat we got every weekend from my grandma. And this store, unfortunately, shut down for a while. Actually for several years, it was a restaurant. Various people ran restaurants out of here. But today with this recipe of meatloaf, some people like meatloaf, some don't. You get into ham loaf, that's a whole nother story. For our meatloaf recipe today we're using a half a pound of ground bologna. So, as you saw earlier, I've got the bologna. I've now got it went up to Greenview. I had my friend Dan ground it up. Dan is a entrepreneur of sorts. He has a little bit of interest in everything. And he had a grinder that I could use. I couldn't find mine. The bologna and the pairing of the ground beef, I asked around about that. And several people told me that back in I think this recipe is probably from the 60s. Back in the 60s, a lot of people ground up their own bologna or made their own bologna. So that's why we think in this recipe it calls for a pound and a half of ground beef, a half pound of bologna, because people had that at home all the time. So this recipe comes from the family of O.C. Lineberger, who, from what I can tell by a little bit of research, was a farmer in western Menard County. He and his wife, I believe his wife's name was Minnie. They lived in Tallulah, which is a town west of New Salem. And their recipe appeared in a Best in the County cookbook from, we believe, in the 1960s. So we're going to make this meatloaf. Like I said, it's cracker crumbs. I use saltines, 3/4 cup of a ketchup, salt, pepper, 1 egg, your half pound of ground bologna, and a cup of milk. So we're going to mix this all together. I'm just going to get this ground beef and pour out our ground bologna here. And we're going to use a cup of the saltine cracker mix. Crack that egg. Maybe get a bonus of the shell if I didn't do it right. Or 1 cup of milk. 3/4 cup ketchup. It said salt and pepper to taste. Throw a little pepper on there. A little salt on there. Now I'm going to start making the loaf. God help me. Now I like meatloaf, but I have never made it with ground bologna. Generally, my meatloaf I make with a pound of ground beef and a pound of pork sausage. I find that gives it a nice flavor. But I've tried meatloaf many ways. I've tried meatloaf instead of using crackers or breadcrumbs. I've used the stovetop stuffing mix in it. Just about any way you can think of it, I've probably tried it. And meatloaf is one of those dishes people either love it or they hate it. And I love it because the best part of meatloaf in my mind is the leftovers. I love a cold meatloaf sandwich with mustard on top. That is some good leftover food. We're forming our loaf here, trying to get it to come together. It's a little soggy. I don't know. Milk might have been a little too much. There we go. It's starting to get a consistency I kind of like here. Smell the bologna in it. Definitely smell the bologna. The bologna and the ketchup. I can smell it. Okay. We're going to place this into a aluminum pan to cook. Almost everybody has their own. Whoop, my loaf came apart. To have meatloaf, you gotta have some carrots and potatoes with it. So I got some baby carrots here. We're gonna throw in just around the meatloaf to cook with it. Just gonna throw some small cut up potatoes here. You gotta have some potatoes and carrots with your meatloaf. And the recipe calls for baking it in an oven with a moderate temperature. I'm going to bake it at 350 for an hour. It said bake it for an hour in an oven at a moderate temperature. In my mind, 350 is about your baseline moderate temperature you should cook it at. So we're going to put it in the oven here and let her get cooking. Like I said, we're going to do that for an hour at 350. And come back in an hour.
Say cheese.
Cheese. Our hour's over. Let's see what this meatloaf looks like. It actually smells pretty good. So, we're going to give it a shot here. You can smell the bologna and the ketchup. It feels done. We're going to cut her into her and see what she looks like. Well, the meatloaf fell apart here while I was trying to cut it and move it into the pan. But it doesn't look bad. It smells really good. God help me. Not bad. I don't really notice the bologna at all there. It just tastes like regular meatloaf. So, So in the end, the bologna and the meatloaf, didn't really notice a difference. Tastes a lot like a regular meatloaf. Like, I prefer to have sausage in mine. It gives it a little bit different flavor, but this is actually pretty good. One thing you could do is you could add some brown gravy to it. You could add some ketchup on top of it. I pretty much followed the basic recipe. The basic recipe, we believe, came from a cookbook from the 1960s, the best in the county. So I think that for what it is, for back in the day when everybody probably had access to bologna and ground beef like this is probably a staple meal in everybody's household. So in the end, I'd just like to thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to your first responders, your military people, keep them in your thoughts. And remember, keep your skillet hot, and I'll see you out on the road.